O'Reilly. Are your wiper blades chattering, skipping, or squeaking? Don't let streaks or smearing on your windshield compromise your visibility. When it's time to replace your wiper blades, stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts and see our selection. Our professional parts people will even install your new wiper blades while you wait. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts today. O'Reilly Auto Parts.
After 3 years of work, our follow-up to the Meat Eater Fish and Game Cookbook is here. It's the Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, campfire, and camp stove. Here is your book for everything that's best cooked or eaten outside. From grilling to open fire cooking to Dutch ovens to smokers to barbecue to backpacking meals to how to pull off the perfect fish fry, with pit stops along the way for lessons about Ice Age cooking methods and the best 5 ways to construct a cooking fire you can be proud of. And of course, we're focusing on wild game and fish here with over 100 recipes, including stuffed venison burgers 3 ways, wild duck with ahi verde sauce, a jerky made with cola, a gin and tonic made with fire-charred lemons, and grilled frog legs made with a sticky sweet sauce. This ain't your normal cookbook, so be prepared to be surprised. Get your copy now. For more info, visit themeateater.com or buy it wherever books are sold.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode number 16 of the Hunting Collective. I'm Ben O'Brien. Today, we are joined by Adam Janke. I don't know if it's Yankee or Janke. It's Janke. You never know how guys pronounce their last name, really. But anyway, Adam is a badass. He's the editor of the Journal of Mountain Hunting, and he is also the host of the Beyond the Kill podcast on that platform. And he's doing a lot of different things in the media world today. Adam is a relative newcomer to the hunting space in terms of media, and quit his 9-to-5 to jump into this world. And his brand and what he represents has done a great job in a short period of time in representing hunting, representing mountain hunting, and getting people excited about the brand that they've created. So, moreover, Adam is our resident Canadian, as we'll call him. He's from British Columbia, and he's got a lot to say about the grizzly bear ban and a lot to say about hunting politics up north, and really just is a great guy to talk to. He's direct, he's frank, he really understands how to work through a conversation and keep it on point and on tone. And I really appreciate talking to him, and I like the guy. I think he's got a refreshing take on everything, and everything seems measured, appropriately so. And he has a lot of awesome stuff to say. So that's episode number 16 of the Hunting Collective, coming at you with Adam Janke. All right, Adam, how's it going, man?
Oh, I'm great, Ben. Really appreciate you having me on.
Oh, no problem. It's a pleasure to, I'm trying to think through if you're the first Canadian ever to join the Hunting Collective. I'm trying to think. Well, nope, Shane Mahoney beat you.
Yeah, he did. Although if I only play second fiddle to Shane Mahoney in over the course of my life, I think I'm doing all right.
Yeah, if you're chasing Shane Mahoney and you're coming in second, you're doing all right. You're going to be, you got to get a new accent, maybe start dressing a little different, but you'll be fine.
Yeah, I'll take that silver medal any day. And frankly, if I at his age, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful manner, but if I'm sporting the hair and beard that he is by that point in my life, I'm definitely in good company.
Oh, a flowing mane, silver mane from our boy Shane. Respect him a lot too, and it's a good starting point to start with Shane and what he does, because conservation is something that's been on my mind a lot lately, just because I was going back through and listening to some prior podcasts and trying just to glean what I had learned from conservation and what I had learned from the people we've interviewed. And I find that the British Columbia grizzly bear hunting ban came up very frequently as is kind of the North Star of what we don't want to occur in the U.S. and elsewhere when it comes to hunting bans or hunting bans just based on what we'd call trophy hunting. So do you have, being a resident Canadian, do you have opinions and experience in that field? I know that you do.
Yeah. Oh man. It's finally become one of those things that I'm probably a little sick of talking about. And some of the background on that, Ben, is, as much as I hate to put it this way, I wrote a piece on the Journal Mountain Hunting platform, our site, or digital magazine, depending on how you want to reference it. Probably 3 years ago, outlining the fact that we were at significant risk as it related to the grizzly bear hunt and losing the grizzly bear hunt because of the way that hunt is. I don't even know how to put it, but the way it's messaged to, in particular, the non-hunting public. I mean, I think you and I would probably agree that we'll probably never get the anti-hunters to see eye to eye with us, and that's not meant to sound disrespectful of the anti-hunting community, but they have their beliefs and we have ours. But that huge swath under the bell curve of the non-hunting public is what we're kind of fighting for, right? And those that were and still are very much opposed to the grizzly bear hunt were mounting a very concerted and sophisticated effort to steer public opinion in a way that, at least in part, led to this decision of an outright ban on all grizzly bear hunting in BC.
Yeah, no, and that's, I mean, it just becomes the first and most, not first, but the most prominent example of legislation changing based on public opinion in this way, and then, as you said, a organized effort to push that legislation and change those things based on, the term trophy hunting and just the particular motivation of hunting that one species in that singular place. So it just seems to me, from Vancouver over to Quesnel and up into the further reaches of British Columbia, that there just is one set of opinions in the urban and suburban areas and another set of opinions in the rural areas. And that really does compare nicely to a lot of the conversation we're having in the States. And it doesn't compare nicely, but it is parallel. So is that something that you obviously identified early on and you continue to see as a problem going forward for British Columbia?
Yeah, and I would like to clarify, when I say, I wrote about this, whatever it was 2-3 years ago, I don't want to, try to sound like some sort of a sage. It was just, at the time I was living in Vancouver and I was interacting with a lot of people from all walks of life, and I've hunted for forever. And so, these sort of things would come up, and I would see, how it was covered in the main, like newspapers, traditional media wise, how it even got covered on, local or regional TV news. And so, I mean, there are many, many, many people in BC who have been involved in this debate and let's call it fight for decades, right? And this has been a hot topic in BC for a very, very long time. And I think Shane, even alluded to the fact that it was, not a new discussion. It just came to a head, just late last year. And there's no question that the decision that was made, and there's a couple things that should be clarified there, right? Because I know a lot of people, when it happened, I heard a lot of other podcasters or people speak to this issue and say that 90% of BC, of the populace of BC was against this so-called trophy hunt, this grizzly bear trophy hunt. And if you actually dig into some of the polls and some of the methods that were used to seek out public opinion and professional and to an extent impartial opinion, the numbers don't really add up. So what did happen was there was a two-pronged effort between the variety of NGOs that are out and out anti-hunting organizations, in particular when it comes to large carnivores. And and then the new party that came into government to just simply push this decision through. The bulk of their support base will be undoubtedly in urban environments, in particular Vancouver and Victoria. And they'll have supporters, across the province. But if you go outside of the what's called the Lower Mainland, which is effectively the Greater Vancouver area, or Victoria, you are going to get very, very different opinions from people on the viability, sustainability, and support of the grizzly hunt. I mean, at the end of the day, Ben, the hunting community here in BC was without question caught with their pants down. Right, we had no organizing body to push back against some of these very sophisticated PR and social media campaigns. There was an immense amount of infighting because of the whole resident versus non-resident issue that is ever present in BC. And just to add clarity to that, there's a lot of people that live and hunt in BC that could care less how a legislative change impacts, as they would call them, foreign trophy hunter, without realizing that it's these sort of things impact all of us. And so, I mean, we were disorganized, we were unsophisticated in how we dealt with this issue, and the decision came down, right? And what's interesting as well about the grizzly bear ban is, this is one of the most regulated and studied hunts on the planet, without a shadow of a doubt. And so we had, no shortage of statistics and data to support the fact that it was absolutely positively sustainable. There was no negative impact on the population. If anything, many would argue that the population had improved over the course of hunting being allowed, because it had been banned previously, going years back. I don't remember exactly what year, but we had no shortage of data. And this, you and I have talked about this before, right? As hunters, we're quick to speak a certain language. Let's loosely call that the conservation language, which is factual and it's good stuff and it's great. It's great information and it's important information, but it just didn't fall on ears that were listening.
Yeah, I mean, I think both sides, particularly in this side, the hunting side, which is on the defensive, is unable to see the nuance in the opposition. And there is this easy, and you and I have talked about this lazy falling back on conservation and that term, and falling back on everything that goes with that. And I think when an argument like this comes up and the opposition is organized and looking for some nuanced thinking that doesn't just parrot out the party lines, the hunting party lines, like, hey, conservation is this, carrying capacity, population control, even the specifics of the nature of grizzly bears and how they interact with other bears and how they interact with humans and why population control is important. I think all those things, while important ideas, aren't necessarily new ideas. And I think when you face a new and more organized opposition, which you would probably agree that this is and was and is, that you have to then come up with better ways to get your points across, and more nuanced ways, in this case, to get your point across, that I think speak a little bit more to your audience, which in this case is Vancouver and Victoria and the Lower Mainland, as you mentioned. So 100% right. And I guess I don't want to belabor this, obviously, because everybody kind of knows the situation, but is there something in the future, now that, the hunting community in BC has been caught with their pants down, something in the future that you see as a solution, or something that has been enacted or ideated at this point that you think might prevent this in the future, or be able to reverse a decision like this?
Well, I mean, there are many that believe that this new government that came into power, this new party, I should say, that came into power, won't get reelected. So, whatever it'll be, 3.5 years now, let's say, down the road, that if the government that was in power prior to this new party and this decision, amongst many others that are a little bit iffy, let's say, the previous government or party comes into power, that it will get reversed. Now, I've also spoken with a ton of people that say, hold on, it's all well and good to think that, and to think that we'll get support from that party, but it's a pretty hard PR pill to swallow to say, hey, there was all this stuff about these beautiful animals that, everyone was supposedly against lopping the heads off of. Well, we're going to let people lop heads off them again, right? And I'm putting those in very, extreme terms, but that's the sort of stuff that was put out there, right? In these PR campaigns from the NGOs, the anti-hunting NGOs, was they used a lot of very graphic, very false, in most cases, in fact, but some very graphic and let's say emotional type of examples of what it meant to be a grizzly bear or so-called trophy hunter. So it's who knows, right? I mean, that's a tough hill to climb if you're a new party coming into power and are supposed to support the hunting and fishing community, in particular the hunting community, and turn this decision around. So I don't know. I don't know where that'll land. As far as the specific hunting community getting more organized, things are being put into action, but this has absolutely exposed just how factional the hunting community is in BC. As I mentioned just a few minutes ago, you have the resident hunters, you have the guide outfitters, you have people that profess to be meat hunters, you have people that love to grizzly bear hunt, you have people that are resident hunters that are also guide outfitters, and you have some of the organizing bodies that are involved here that should have kind of had our backs, that are playing politics in behind closed doors. So I really don't know. I mean, that was one of the first things I did after the initial decision, which is actually just a ban on keeping hide, head, and claws. You could still hunt grizzly bears. You just had to take the meat and leave everything else behind. So even when that went down, one of the first things I did was I started calling people that I know were involved in certain organizations and said, what's the plan here? Like, what's going on? And everyone just sort of, on a figurative sense, just looked around the room to see who else had the answer, right? And that was then, and things have been put into motion, but it won't happen quickly. So so time will tell.
Yeah, that's interesting to me, and there's a bunch of things wrapped up in that to me that are important overall. But it seems in general that we've always have this. When you say anti-hunting, it strikes me as one side, the anti-hunting side, is always arguing on emotion, right, and general sensationalism. And then you have the hunting side in this case, or really sometimes in America, the pro-gun side, who's always trying to argue pragmatism and not always factual information, but at least the air of factual information. And those two sides continue to go head to head, and that emotional side can't reason with pragmatism and facts and common sense, and the pragmatism side can't see the emotional connection to the animal. And Steve Ranella puts it very, very bluntly that an animal rights activist is good at taking care of one animal, and the hunter is good at taking care of the entire population. And so I've spoken to a lot of people. This is one I'd love to get your opinion on. I've spoken to a lot of people about how do we fix that chasm, because it is a large chasm between somebody who cares emotionally about that single being or somebody who cares about grizzly bears as a population in more of a figurative sense. Do you have any thoughts on that, having gone through this issue and having being, kind of not in the middle, but a large part of an issue like this where those two ideas are at the fore?
After 3 years of work, our follow-up to the Meat Eater Fish and Game Cookbook is here. It's the Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, campfire, and camp stove. Here is your book for everything that's best cooked or eaten outside, from grilling to open fire cooking to Dutch ovens to smokers to barbecue to backpacking meals to how to pull off the perfect fish fry, with pit stops along the way for lessons about Ice Age cooking methods and the best 5 ways to construct a cooking fire you can be proud of. And of course, we're focusing on wild game and fish here with over 100 recipes, including stuffed venison burgers 3 ways, wild duck with ahi verde sauce, a jerky made with cola, a gin and tonic made with fire-charred lemons, and grilled frog legs made with a sticky sweet sauce. This ain't your normal cookbook, so be prepared to be surprised. Get your copy now. For more info, visit themeateater.com or buy it wherever books are sold.
Yeah, I mean, so there's I think there's two at least potential solutions here. One that in the discussions I was having after both, let's call them segments of the whole grizzly fiasco occurred, that just a lot of us came to agree on, right? A lot of people that were involved either in some of the politics or people that are involved with organizations that are trying to, sort of get the ship, on course. So there's that solution, and then there's one that's come to me a little bit more recently, and so they're effectively external and internal solutions. I think on the external side, we as hunters, as you and I have said, are very quick to, pull the sort of conservation gun out of the holster, right? Use all the data and the science that we either find for ourselves or get spoon-fed by all the organizations out there that are part of the hunting community and are doing great work. I don't want to sound like I'm diminishing the work some of these legacy organizations have done, but we, that was kind of the only ammo we had, right? And then when we get an emotional pushback from, in particular, the anti-hunters, and then that trickles into the non-hunting public, we were very quick to say, well, they're just being irrational and emotional, right? And at the end of the day, most hunters love to hunt, and they do so for more emotional reasons than they do rational reasons. And if you're telling other people otherwise, you're telling yourself otherwise, I would challenge that that notion, right? It's, I hunt because I love to hunt and everything that comes with it. And are there good reasons to do it? Yes. Are there scientific reasons to do it? Yes. Are there management reasons to do it? Yes. Are there familial reasons to do it? I.e. put, clean protein in my freezer on my table? Sure. But I just love to hunt. I really do. And so we weren't acknowledging our own emotional connection to these issues, and then using that, those emotions to communicate and connect with people on a real personal level, right? And we can't sit here and say we need to be rational when, it's not human nature to be rational all the time, if not most of the time, right? And so I do think in terms of how we communicate with in particular, the non-hunting public, we just need to recognize that, how we were communicating with them, how we were and are to a certain extent, is falling on deaf ears. Shane says himself, and I'll probably butcher it, but if we, speak, what is it? If for too long we speak only to ourselves, we'll be the only ones left listening, right? And I think that's a big part of what happened here. So externally, I think we need to, engage with the non-hunting public. And I want to be clear when I say that doesn't mean we need to be conciliatory or, walk around with our hands out saying, please, sir, can I have some more? We need to, stand up for what we believe in, but make real connections with people, whether that's over food or in, town hall settings or at dinner parties or whatever the case may be. Like, just engage with people, and share some of the emotional reasons you do it, right? And don't just spew out what I'm sure comes across as sort of defensive justifications for what we do. So that would be one. And then two is on the internal side of things, and this is linked to that thing I sent you earlier today, is, if we continue to, segregate our own community by labels like I hunt for meat. Let me back that up. If we continue to segregate our community based on labels that we, identify with in terms of our reasons for hunting, I hunt for meat, I hunt for trophy, I hunt for inches, I hunt for maturity, I hunt for management, I hunt for conservation, I think we are going to find ourselves in a bad spot, because we are doing the work of the anti-hunters by creating those divisions within our own community. I'm a bow hunter, therefore I must not like the long range people. I'm a trad bow hunter, therefore I think anybody that takes a 60-yard shot with a compound is the Antichrist, right? And so, those sort of things, I think we need to sort out get our own house in order as much as we need to think as hard about how to communicate with the non-hunting public.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that wholeheartedly, and I think it's we're unlucky in this situation. Like not unlucky, but we have fallen into a passion, something we care a lot about that is complex and is regional, and it doesn't always look the same. Hunting doesn't look the same on the East Coast as it does in East Coast of the States as it does in northern British Columbia. It just doesn't look and feel the same. It isn't. The picture isn't painted with the same strokes. And so we have all these different perspectives that we're trying to apply to one ethic, which seems the right way, and in my mind, it kind of is the right thing to do. But unfortunately, we've had this very complex and ever changing idea of what hunting is in the modern times. So we're stuck arguing those points, arguing the finer points of what it is, instead of really trying to, like you said, connect with people that don't do it. Like, how do I connect with you? What is the one thing that we share in common, which is most often caring about the animal and valuing the animal's life, which is usually the one commonality in this situation, and trying to bridge a gap based on that, as opposed to trying to make definitions out of something that seemingly, may not be able to be defined, just because it is so different and so nuanced and changing all the time. And so, yeah, we're stuck with this complex message, this very complex argument we have amongst ourselves even. And the other side is bringing forth something that isn't that complex. It's basically, we love animals, and all animals are sentient beings, and all animals deserve life. You don't have the option to take it from them and then brag about it for anything. And so I think at the end of the day, we just need to first identify the complexity and what we're trying to do in the modern world, and the simplicity of the counter argument. And that's a lot of times how that counter argument has strength, because it's sensational and it's simple and it's easy for people to understand. And so I think our messaging just needs to be consistent, and we need to find a way to trumpet that messaging and get it out as much as we can. So I maybe that's a depressing kind of opinion to have on the damn thing, but it's true. I mean, we have put, by being hunters in the modern society, we kind of put ourselves behind the eight ball, because it's a complex thing in a world that doesn't really enjoy complexity. They want everything to be pretty simple. So I think BC is just one of those places that was kind of the front lines of this, because of that grizzly bear being a charismatic megafauna that we love to personify, and we love to put on a pedestal for some reason. But enough of that. Enough of that business. We could talk about that all day. You're in the media world. You're the editor of the Journal of Mountain Hunting, which to me is an interesting take on print publications. And I, being a former print editor myself, I really enjoy the quality of the paper and the white space and all of the real geeky editor type things that I notice when I look at the book. But I also really enjoy, and I think why your voice is important, is because the way the book is written and presented is very much with an eye towards how hunters are seen, and how you can shape that image and bring that image into a better light. So I always appreciate those efforts, and I appreciate that book. But what's it like being an editor and working every single day to put together a product that's has those goals, and it can be judged for its creativity?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I by no means would I ever want to sound like I've got a hard go here, Ben. I mean, I'm working in the hunting business, which, for a lot of people, that's a dream, right? And so, for the most part, it's a ton of fun. I mean, there's a lot of nuances, as you pointed out, to this world, and our whole mantra from inception. So the Journal of Mountain Hunting started as a digital magazine, as we like to think of it. I mean, it was a website, of course, but structured very much as a digital magazine. What you were just referencing is our print edition, which we released our first last year. And we have a new one coming out very soon, if not by the time this goes to air. And, in both those channels, let's call them, it was we were always sort of focused on trying to, like you said, present an image of hunting, or frankly uncover one of the hidden images of hunting that just wasn't necessarily part of or common part of the media mix, so that people could see that there is more to hunting than what they might see on a certain TV show, right, or on a YouTube video or anything along those lines, right? And so we always wanted to go deep, right? So, I mean, geez, one of the stories in that print edition you've seen was 9,000 words, right? And for some people, maybe that makes their eyes glaze over, but that's what the story took to tell, right? And so we wanted to not get all flowery and philosophic on all subjects, but really create a forum where we can discuss the complexity, right? Like you said, I mean, complexity is at the root of this whole thing we call hunting, and it's also at the root of some of the problems we're facing in the media world. And so that was a big part of what I wanted to do. And when I started it 4 years ago, there wasn't a lot of content out there that kind of suited my needs, right? It wasn't the kind of stuff I wanted to consume. And that's not to say there wasn't a lot of good stuff out there. It's just I had to piece it together from all sorts of different publications or forums or brand blogs or whatever the case may be, right? That's changed. Obviously, there's a lot of great stuff out there nowadays, and the game has been elevated in terms of photography or film or the print game, but it's a very fun job. It's a very interesting job. I was in healthcare before I made the leap to this field. I knew nothing about media, and the only connection I had to hunting was that I loved to do it and grew up doing it. And so every day is kind of figuring it out as we go, and making sure that where possible and if possible, everything we put out there is at least has the potential to make a person look at it and go, oh, this is about hunting. That's interesting. I've never seen it presented this way, right? Or I rarely see it presented this way.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I mean, coming from traditional, people have to just forgive me being a print journalist in my past lives. They'll just gonna have to listen to some of the print journalistic industry insider talk that I'm about to have. So just deal with it. But the traditional books, Outdoor Life, Field and Stream, Peterson's Hunting, North American Whitetail, we can go down and down that list of traditional print titles that have been around a long time in the hunting industry and contributed a ton to our culture, and contributed a ton of knowledge to the hunting public out there. They've come upon hard times. There's less pages, there's more advertising. There's less honesty in these publications. I mean, I was an editor of one of them. I can tell you that it is, it's hard to both sell ads and have honest editorial at the same time. When those lines get blurred, it's just a really tough thing. And I think as the digital world pushes a more democratic exchange of information, it's tough for these print titles who are really, it's a cheap subscription price. And they're really counting on advertising to pay the bills, and that means inherently that the advertiser has a lot of influence on what's going on, and a lot of those advertisers certainly know that and use it as a benefit. Is there a way you feel like the journal can buck some of those trends, and it just overall are you hopeful for the medium and the messaging and all that kind of stuff? I know that's probably a deep question, but yeah. So, I mean, I think it's possible to buck the trend. But I mean, we've put out one print edition, and, when we go live with this next one, which has been a long time coming for anyone that is a subscriber, or is a customer, I should say, that we're going to a quarterly schedule. As of this year, we'd started with a plan to be biannual, but we're going to go quarterly. So I say that only because, I'm not sitting here with 20 years of experience in the print game, or let alone 5 years of experience in the print game, right? That said, in our initial print edition, we had 20 pages of ads
in what would amounted to over 150 pages of content. And so I think the simplest and blunt way to put it is somebody has to pay, right? So that's either going to be the advertisers, like you're alluding to with the traditional sort of print model, or it's the reader, right? And that was the path we took. We have minimal ads, but we charge for one issue about what it costs for a subscription to most of those legacy magazines, right? And so if people want honest editorial, in-depth content, unique content, right? Stuff they haven't seen before and can't find for free somewhere else, which is a whole other issue. Then I think people just need to get to the point where they're willing to pay for it, right? We're sitting on a free podcast right now, or at least free for people to listen to, not free to produce. You and I both know that. And so with the digital side being obviously so important today in the media game, people do expect a lot of things for free, and I get that. There's certain things I expect for free, but I still spend $10 to $30 on a book if I deem it worthwhile, right? And so I think with the print game, I don't think print is dead. I think just the model needs to be adjusted. And one of the more common things we hear, Ben, that's really interesting, and then this is quite a number of responses from customers or emails, et cetera, from customers, is that people welcome a break from the digital world, right? If they work at a desk, they're at a computer all day. They're on their phone more than they should be. We all are, right? And so when you get something that's of quality in your hands, that is visually enticing and has quality content and honest editorial, a lot of people have emailed us saying, like, it's just so nice to put all that stuff down, turn off the monitor, and actually sit down and read something again. And of course, it has to have quality to support that. But I do think people still like print. And I don't know if you ever heard the term digital fatigue, but I think that's a real thing. And I think we in the media business just need to tweak our approach to how we essentially package print content.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I've said that a lot about even hunting. I hate to always go back to like the broad concept of hunting, but urbanization has been one of the things that has pushed hunting numbers down, pushed hunting participation down. And my estimation here lately, you see a lot of people that are bucking that urbanization trend and looking for ways to get out of those urban environments and go experience something a little bit different. And if you put hunting in their path, they'll accept it every time, as long as you put it in their path with the right framing. Much the same with print journalism and the print publications like yours. If you put it in the path of a media hound, somebody who loves to read and they're just tired of poking around Twitter and getting misdirected and having a lot of opinions thrown at them, it's nice to turn that off and just read it. Like you said, 9,000 word article is ridiculously long. They used to say 800 words is about everybody's attention span. And you and I have had this conversation before where I said their attention span, while I consider that to be important, I really just want to get the message out the best way that I can. And if it's 9,000 words instead of 800, then that's what I'm going to do. And I'll trust that people appreciate that. And I guess we'll go out of business if they don't. Because you really got to be honest to the content. And I feel like that's what the Journal of Mountain Hunting really does. And that's why reading it, that you get that this is just an honest accounting of these stories, and the places and the people, which I think is how films, a company I work for, Yeti, how their films have become popular, because they focus on story first and they're not driven by anything else but that. And that, for in a world where everybody's being pandered to, it's a straight up honest account or honest story that is important to the overall culture. Seems like maybe it's a little bit of an outlier, which is sad to say, but I hope people are increasingly willing to pay the premium for a publication like yours, but also willing to pay premiums for podcasts as well. Because as a podcaster, you have a podcast yourself, Beyond the Kill. I think we probably both feel pressure to collect advertisers to make a profit. But every time you kind of inch to the next advertiser, and you have to give a little bit of yourself with each one of them, whether you like it or not. And that's a tough position to be in. So I would hope that just as a pure, honest storyteller and communicator, that you could find a balance. Have you struck any balances that you found to be beneficial?
Oh, that's a good question. It's funny. I got asked this earlier today, or at least in a similar sort of question. I think we from the get-go focused on quality over quantity. So that was multifaceted. That was in the stuff we produced, right? The articles we put out there. I'm not saying they're all perfect, and I'm certainly not saying they're better than the other stuff out there. They're just they're different, right? They're in depth. I mean, we've had online stories that were, somebody submitted to us with awesome photos that were, 7,000, 8,000 words long, right? That we broke up into 2 parts. So, we always wanted to give the story a chance, I guess. So like when you talk about an 800-word attention span, well, not many of the books that are on my bookshelf are 800 words, right? So I think if the material is put together in an engaging way, right? I mean, at the end of the day, do good work, right? You got to do good work, and people aren't going to read it. I mean, that's a bigger hit on an attention span than the length, right? But we stayed really committed and continue to stay really committed to that side of it. Not just putting things out there to generate clicks or volume of traffic or stuff like that. Sure, that's great, but there's ways to, as to manipulate that side of the game without there actually being a lot of quality or substance to it. So there's that side of it. And the second part of it is we, no different than with the print edition and talking about, basically asking our readers to pay, we kept our advertising spots to a minimum. And this is online and in print and on the podcast for that matter as well. And charged a premium for it. We basically said to an advertiser, we'd love to work with you, Company X, assuming there was, I hate to use, whatever media douche terms like brand synergy, but that there was alignment, right, between our brand and their brand. We would say, we'd like to work with you. You will be one of, 6 or one of 20 or one of 4, depending on the channel we're talking about, that's on this platform. So because of that, very prominent and basically impossible to miss position, we're going to ask you to pay a lot more than you otherwise would in the volume game. So that ended up being something that worked real well for us at the outset and continues to work well to a point. And that's not to suggest that there aren't, I can't say conflicts, but there aren't people that are skeptical of our relationships with an advertiser, and simply that we're talking about, a given brand or product because we're paid to do so. I would honestly say, and I mean this, as sincerely as I possibly can, that because we've worked predominantly with a really limited group of as we would call them, sponsors, and that's not me being sponsored, that's sponsors of our content. We've been fortunate enough to work with brands that are really damn easy to represent and support, right? If they make damn good packs, it's hard to it's not hard to say these are damn good packs. Or if they make good firearms or optics or whatever, it's pretty easy to basically just embed those in the platform or the channel and be authentic about it.
Yeah. No, I'd agree. And that's maybe there's the balance. I say maybe because you're working in a world, and we all are, everybody that creates media, working in a world where people are rightfully suspicious of your motivations when you start talking about consumer products. And I ran into this personally being on the Joe Rogan podcast. And because I work at Yeti, and every time we mention Yeti, people just assume that maybe Yeti paid for this, paid for me to be on there, or paid Joe to have me on, and rightfully so. They should think in those terms. I mean, that is there's a lot of that going on. There's a lot of submersive advertising, and there's a lot of, Batman jumps out of the Batmobile and gets into a BMW. Like, he didn't need to get in that BMW. He's got a damn Batmobile. And so there's just there's those things that it almost feels falsely submersive. Like, oh, we trick them to drive. Batman drives a BMW. Everybody else should too. So, as a consumer, I don't like to be duped. I don't like to need a product based on osmosis. I'd like to really need it and really be informed about it, especially in the niche media world where you and I spend most of our time. So it's an interesting topic, because when you're hunting, and especially when you're on a mountain, things get dangerous, and you need to rely on the products that you're using, and you put a lot of money and time into these efforts. And if there's a journalistic platform out there, or at least faintly journalistic platform, that's telling you should use something based on being paid to tell you that really devalues your time on the goddamn mountain. And that equation starts to get really gross. It starts to feel cheap, and it starts to just devalue all media that isn't, social or in a digital platform. So I'm glad, really why I want to just bring this up and talk through some of this with you, is just because it almost feels like what you're doing fights back against our better nature to accept a lot of money to not lie, but just misrepresent things.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's very gracious of you to say, Ben. It means a lot coming from you that you see it that way. And if I go back to when we started the journal in August 2014, it was the proverbial scratching my own itch, right? So like, I would go to a hunting forum or a website or wherever, right, to look for information or to read stories or just, BS. And I'd just be like inundated with, good old ad tech, things popping up and flashing and trying to distract me from why I was there. And I just, I don't know if we could say intuitively, but I just thought, there's got to be a better way. Like, I don't click on those things. I don't read those things. They have zero impact on me. How is this performing, right? And so, whether we call what we're trying to do as fighting back, or just trying to offer an alternate option, which certainly isn't for everyone. I mean, let's be honest. There are brands that need volume and want volume, right? And we're not the place for that. If you want to have a hyper-targeted, hyper-engaged audience that is shrewd and discerning, then maybe we are, right? And again, we've been really lucky in that because we only work with a small batch of brands, that it's not hard to fill the holes you should as an advertiser and can, right? Kind of check the boxes of the categories that are, the companies that need to invest in their marketing and PR. We've been lucky in that those are usually best in class or in the top 3 to 5 of the class, right? And so it's really easy to be honest. And you're right, though, it is very justifiable for people to be skeptical, and they should be. And in fact, I welcome that. I like that, right? As if a person wanted to ask myself or anyone that worked here with us about this or about a product or something like that, they're going to get a real answer. Right? Because not only are we happy to work with the companies we do, but I guarantee you, as you will have seen in that film I sent you, you better damn well believe we put it to the test.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, that's the important part, is that you can stand by that product, whether that ad is in that magazine or not. And I would hope, and I will do this, and sometimes I wish we could do this live where people could call in, but when we post this podcast, I'm going to put up a poll or fashion something where I can ask people, like, are you willing to shuffle through a bunch of advertising to get to the content you want? Or would you rather pay money to see that content free of that advertising? Or at least in your case, more appropriate advertising that feels natural and is more of a supportive role as opposed to a submersive role. I want to know that from people, because I want to know. In my career, there was a big time where paywalls were just not tolerated. Like if you were a digital editor and your magazine or your newspaper tried to make the audience pay for the content, nobody would do it. But I think that's changing now. I think people are willing to pay for quality content and good in-depth reporting and good quality information that isn't touched by any outside sources. So hopefully, if you're listening to this and you have an opinion, write in. But if not, shoot me an email or shoot us a direct message on Instagram. But if not, check everything out. Go back to our pages and look for some polls and let us know what you think, because I think that's really up to the folks listening and reading to continue to drive that conversation and tell us what they want and what they need. So that's a great conversation, one I could have forever. But you mentioned what I believe is one of the more hardcore hunts that I've ever seen. And I think when you return from this hunt, I said something like the pain threshold just went up a little bit. I try to find the most suffrage I can on a mountain when I can, places I've been like New Zealand or Nepal. But I feel like you might have willingly went into the most painful mountain hunting situation humanly possible. And you're going to have to tell us all about that, because it's a doozy.
I think that's the first time I've heard it sort of reviewed in that manner, Ben, and I like it. I like it a lot, actually. So the film we're talking about here, which we released very recently, I'm not sure when this podcast will air, but it was released on May 31st. So it's been up as of today for, 5 days? 6 days, something like that. And so it's called Towing the Line, and you can find that on YouTube, or you can get it on our on the Journal of Mountain Hunting website. On our we've got a watch section that has films and stuff on it, and so this was a February, just this past February, mountain goat hunt in northern BC, north coastal BC, just shy of the Alaska border. And 6 of us went into this area. We took a boat down the inlet and got dropped off, some nameless creek, or at least one that I won't name on here. And just went after it. And the simple, sort of premise of the film is this was a guide's hunt, not a guided hunt, a guide's hunt. So the main character, Nolan Osborne is his name. He, like most guides, spends, 4, 5, 6 months a year, depending on how the year plays out, helping other people fill their own tags. But as far as feeding his passion for mountain hunting, by the time the season wraps up, there's not really a whole lot left, and at least in BC. Yeah, I mean, you could go overseas and, plug yourself into some of the really lengthy seasons there for, various mountain species. But in BC, you're not left with a whole lot when the guiding season's all wrapped up. And so he decided to, for better or for worse, go on this very late season, literally the end of February, goat hunt into some pretty gnarly terrain. And it was, minus 20 Celsius most of the time.
Let me stop you real quick. Minus 20 Celsius. What's that Fahrenheit? And you say most of the time.
I have no idea. I'm not sure what the Fahrenheit conversion is.
It's cold as shit, everybody. Cold as hell. And these guys, you're talking about 9 days in sub-freezing temperatures. And Nolan, if you watch the film, Nolan's a badass of badasses. But crampons, ice axes, just some, what I would say, general insanity, but the best kind. So continue. People just need to understand it's cold as hell here, and cold as hell normally means you're in danger at almost every point of the day because you need to keep your body temps up. You need to not freeze and die. So let's start this. Let's continue the story on that premise. Go at 'em.
Yeah. So it was cold AF, right? Like. But as Canadians, that's not something we're overly concerned with. I mean, like you said, it just changes. I say it changes everything, right? I mean, from your moisture management, so your apparel system, to your firearm, or if you were carrying a bow, it would obviously impact that. How you get water. I mean, we couldn't hike for more than 5 minutes without our water bottles freezing shut, and so we couldn't drink. So we've got imagery of me, holding the water bottle up to my mouth, an Nalgene, not metal, so it didn't get stuck to me, but breathing the really aggressive breaths around the rim of the Nalgene, just so I had a chance of breaking the frozen seal to get a gulp of water, which was already half frozen after, a little bit of hiking after I just filled it up. Right. So, it was tough, and it was tough for a lot of reasons. The country this was in is as steep and gnarly as it gets. This shouldn't be a surprise. This was a late season mountain goat hunt. Mountain goats are not known for living in, gentle terrain. And so it was a test of absolutely everything that you could test as a hunter, right? Your physicality, your mental fortitude, your gear. And it was just an absolutely phenomenal hunt. We had Dustin Rowe was along with us. He actually had planned to come and hunt for himself. This is actually kind of funny, with his bow. And the first day, I don't know if you caught this in the film or not, Ben, but it took us 5.5 hours to cover 2 kilometers. And so we got in there, we got set up at what we would consider base camp, and woke up the next morning and started glass, and found some goats, and in particular some billies that we were willing to put the effort in to chase. But they were literally on the summits of these mountains. And Dustin came back in from glassing, looked at his bow hanging on a broken off tree branch, and just looked at us and said, "Yep, that's staying there." And the hunt shifted into just getting Nolan his goat, which had been the plan for the film all along. And so it was filled with adventure and comedy and danger and everything you're looking for, right? Like you said, when you go out there and you're looking for the ultimate suffrage, we got that in spades. It took everything we had and then half again more to pull this thing off. And I don't think any one of us would trade it for the world, despite there not being a single day where we didn't look at each other and go, what in the are we doing right now?
Yep. Yeah. And Dustin Rowe is a tough son of a bee, man. Like there is nothing about him that has quit in him. I mean, he's done just about everything on a mountain that a guy could do. And to hear that of him is one, good of him is a part of a hunting party, but also just tells me, hey, look, this is a rough situation. And I think it's universal. You know this. You get in these situations and you're suffering through something, and you've kind of stacked the odds against yourself on purpose, or just by circumstance. And it takes a whole crew of people to accomplish something. And watching the film, I just was struck by the story. Yeah, sure. But I was just struck by the teamwork it takes to film, how cameras work when it's that cold, how a team of people have to work together. I mean, you guys were talking about having to hike a little bit and then stop, and somebody go through it and pick through the ice and hike a little bit and stop. And I mean, just the teamwork that it takes and the bond that you have with the people that go on those types of trips with you is amazing. I've never felt anything like it. Obviously, I've never been in the military or anything like that, but I've never felt the bond like that. I mean, you guys all felt that coming off the mountain, I imagine.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I mean, to give some context to that, so 2 quick stories before I know we'll need to start wrapping up. But to your point about Dustin, I don't even remember the exact number, but he's been a part of more than 100 sheep hunts. That doesn't mean he's guided all of those himself, but he's been a part of them. And on one ascent or attempt at an ascent before we got turned around with our tails between our legs, it took us 7.5 hours to go 1,100 vertical feet. And on that climb, so that was in part because of the steep, like the grade, the steepness, but also the snow depths. I mean, there were points that, and you'll see this in the film if you choose to watch it, where we're in snow that's anywhere from knee to nipple deep at times. And so when you talk about that teamwork, Ben, we had to break trail everywhere we went through this pretty hefty snowpack. And the guy breaking trail could only go, depending on the grade, 20 to maybe 45 minutes if you were lucky, before he would be absolutely destroyed and would have to drop to the back of the stack. And the guy that was second would now break trail. The guy that's third is packing down that trail a little bit more, and so on and so forth. So we were running this sort of flying V of alternating guys breaking trail. So it was very, very slow going, right? So one, you're right, the team was, I think, essential. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's people that could do it solo. They have to be the hardest SOBs on the planet to do it. I don't even know if 2 or 3 guys could have done at least the trip that we did. I really believe that 4 to 6 was the minimum to be able to even just move around, like be mobile. But on this climb, coming back to Dustin, on this climb that took us 7 hours to cover not a whole lot of elevation, we're about halfway up, and Dustin and I are in the middle of the group, and we're, it's one of those, probably similar to what you experienced in Nepal in certain ways, obviously not the elevation side of it, but the 10, 15 steps and heave and suck wind over top of your hiking poles, right? Dustin turns to me, and we're both dripping sweat and just working our butt off, and we're dripping sweat at -20. And he goes, "It does not get any more bleeping hardcore than this." Wipes the sweat off his brow and keeps hiking, right? And so I stood there for a minute and I thought, damn it, man. Like, if Dustin's saying that, what the hell did I get myself into, right?
Yeah. And you always come back from it. Like, you don't know, not always. There's plenty of examples of people that have unfortunate things happen and maybe don't come back. But in these cases, like you have it dialed into the point where it's time to stop. And what's cool about the film, but what's also, what's cool about the people in it is that you're always moving the goalpost back a little bit. You get to the point where I can't do this anymore. And then you stop and you're like, I can do a little bit more. And then you go and you stop and you go, I can do a little bit more. And then you go. And then eventually you get to your destination. And then I'm sure I've been this way, but I'm sure when you guys got back home and you were, your first world problems started to pop up back in your real life, you're like, man, that's nothing. I have summited the craziest mountain and the craziest weather and the craziest situation as anybody can imagine. Even if Dustin Rose says it's hardcore, it's hardcore. He's kind of the arbiter of hardcore in my mountain hunting life. And he, you get back and like life seems a little bit easier because by comparison it is. So I appreciate that perspective, and I really appreciate the perspective that film gives. And hopefully everybody gets to hear Nolan's story and watch that hunt, because it is, it's one of the better ones I've seen in a long time. And if you can watch it through the prism of pure elevated suffrage, you'll probably enjoy it more and probably cringe a little bit more at some of the stuff you see.
Yeah, I mean, I think the best way I could put it is, if you're, a self-considered, pretty serious backcountry or mountain hunter, you're definitely going to like this film. If you couldn't care less about mountain hunting or goat hunting, I'm pretty sure you're still going to like this film because of what you just outlined. It's a hunting story. But I think, like you outlined, Ben, the camaraderie, the teamwork, the environment, like the environment was showcased, obviously, and the suffrage it took to get it done. And that was, admittedly a big part of what we wanted to share. And while at the same time, not necessarily getting all romantic about it, is just show that, not all hunting is as easy as some people might think it to be. And I do hope that some people that don't hunt will stumble across it and kind of go, wow, I didn't think that was something that happened, right? So I don't want that to sound like it was, contrived or manipulated. I mean, this is what it took, but and we knew that going into it, and that was part of why we wanted to do a film. We knew we were gonna come home with something pretty different. So yeah, I just encourage and would be grateful for anyone that's listening to check it out. It is on the longer side of what's considered normal these days. Ironically, when we talk about attention spans and 800-word stories, etc., it is a 20-minute film. So it's not something I would say watch on your phone if you can avoid it. But we've had a lot of great feedback, and the response has been phenomenal. And I'd like to add, Ben, if I could, just quickly, that all credit is due to Connor at Talus Creative, because he is really the brains behind what you see in that film. You know, the shots, the shot angles, the way it was edited and cut together, the music, everything. That is his baby, right? I mean, I was involved, obviously, in whatever capacity you want to call my involvement, but I was very thankfully able to, chime in as needed and when needed, and then let Connor produce what you saw. So he's got an immense amount of talent, and everyone's been loving the film that has watched it.
Well, that's good. I've always found that it's nice to have really creative people around to make you look good. That's
Indeed.
been my experience, but it's a fantastic piece, and hope everybody goes and checks it out and checks out the Journal of Mountain Hunting and just kind of gets immersed in Adam's world and the people that he surrounds himself with, because it is, I like to be real succinct with the old podcast and bring it all around. It is something that can help how you see hunting, and really is in my estimation about the experience, and can connect with hunters on a different level and people maybe that don't hunt, to help put that thing down. So the next time we have a controversy, everybody has their ideas all packaged up and ready to go to fight these battles that we need to fight, because I hate to use those terms, but it's the truth. So Adam, thank you very much for coming on and joining me, and for doing what you do in our industry and our world, and being our resident Canadian, if you don't mind being that guy.
I sure don't. Take it any day, man.
All right, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ben. Really appreciate the time. And for everyone listening, thanks for setting aside the time to listen to a Canadian with a funny accent.
That's about it. I can't say about very good, but
yeah, a boot. You got to get your boots. It's a boot, Ben. A boot.
That's about it. See ya.
There you go, man. Thanks, Ben. Take care.
That's it. That's all. Episode number 16 in the books. Thank you to Adam. Thank you to the Journal of Mountain Hunting for doing what you do. Everybody associated with that media house, making films, making podcasts, printing out magazines. Really appreciate you. Appreciate your message. Appreciate how you do it. Episode number 16 was great. Look forward to episode number 17. I am making a trip to Bozeman, Montana next week. Hopefully I'll catch up with a lot of guys. Hoping to catch up with one Cody Rich, the Rich Outdoors. May even catch up with the elusive Latvian eagle, Jānis Patelis, his home country. Never know how that's going to go. But I do love me some Yanni. So look out for those, episode number 17 and 18. Hopefully we'll be those two folks. But we're headed there, and it's going to be fun. Until then, thehuntingcollective.com has articles, it has videos, it has other podcasts from Steve Ranella, Remy Warren, John Dudley, Shane Mahoney, Aubrey Marcus. The two most recent I really want you to listen to are Ryan Callahan on episode number 15 and Casey Butler on episode number 14. Both great people, and a great hunt I had with those guys in Sonora, Mexico. Sonora, Texas. Way north. But those were two great podcasts with great guys. So keep listening, keep commenting at BennyOB301 on Instagram and on our website. We'd love to hear from you. Love to see the emails. Love to hear your stories. Please keep them coming. It gets me up in the morning sometimes to read those awesome accounts and awesome reasonings. And everything you want me to know, even if you want to tell me that I suck. I'll read it anyway. Appreciate you guys. See ya.
After 3 years of work, our follow-up to the Meat Eater Fish and Game Cookbook is here. It's the Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, campfire, and camp stove. Here is your book for everything that's best cooked or eaten outside. From grilling to open fire cooking to Dutch ovens to smokers to barbecue to backpacking meals to how to pull off the perfect fish fry. with pit stops along the way for lessons about Ice Age cooking methods and the best 5 ways to construct a cooking fire you can be proud of. And of course, we're focusing on wild game and fish here with over 100 recipes, including stuffed venison burgers 3 ways, wild duck with ahi verde sauce, a jerky made with cola, a gin and tonic made with fire-charred lemons, and grilled frog legs made with a sticky sweet sauce. This ain't your normal cookbook, so be prepared to be surprised. Get your copy now. For more info, visit themeateater.com or buy it wherever books are sold.